we want you to listen to this little piece of just pure fabulous Mark Steyn.
Well, in your article, Supervillain, you do refer to Michael Mann as a litigious dweeb.
I think we should note for the record that I say he's an insecure, litigious dweeb whose principal skills are blocking, banning, and hysterically shrieking that Amazon.com cracked down on any reviewers insufficiently fawning in their reviews of his book. That's what I said.
Yeah, thank you.
Hello and welcome to the Ann Phelan Scoop. I'm Phelan McAleer.
And I'm Anne McElhenney.
So we didn't intend to be making this kind of podcast today, did we, Anne?
No.
It was our plan to be covering a very important trial that we've been teasing up to now, but the so-called American justice system had other plans. We'll fill you in on the details of Mark Steyn, Justice Delayed, later in the podcast. But first of all, we want to talk about our very important Gosnell photo exhibition in Ohio. It's the crime scene photos from the Gosnell case. Now, as you know, we've written a book, a New York Times best-selling book about the case. We've made a top-listened podcast, one of the top 10 podcasts on the planet on the case, Serial Killer, a True Crime podcast. We've done a play about it. We've done a lot of things about it. And but in our investigations, we gained access to the crime scene photos. And Gosnell, as for many of you, I'm sure, know this, he was an abortion doctor in Philadelphia who also murdered babies and killed several of his patients. The grand jury believes he was America's biggest serial killer. He's currently serving 3 life sentences, should be serving hundreds of life sentences. So these crime scene photos, they're important historical documents, and there's tradition in America of crime scene photos being made into exhibitions. The left do this all the time, by the way, photo exhibitions about climate change, about refugees, about Gaza. So we decided to put one up in Columbus, Ohio. You can find out the details at evidencetheexhibition.com. Our photo exhibition is open until November the 7th. Now, there's nothing gory on site. There are some explicit photographs in a different room behind curtains. You can go there if you want. But the banality of evil is just as interesting sometimes as the evil in your face. So it's how a man was allowed to kill in plain sight, almost boasting about it, and the quiet executioners who worked alongside him, too, the people who made it happen, his colleagues, their lives and the lives of a busy office that was also doubling up as a scene of mass murder. So
we're getting a great reaction from people who go to the exhibition. We're getting extraordinary. I'll just give you one message that our colleague who's at the exhibition sent this yesterday. She said, yesterday a gentleman came in who was an actor and for many years on the other side of the abortion issue. He heard an interview with Phelan and myself about My Son Hunter and started following our work. He spent over an hour in the gallery, and in the room with the babies, he wept. He said, if only I knew then what I know now. And the reason, just to explain, I suppose, the reason why we're doing this. Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this in Columbus, Ohio? So, on November the 7th, there will be a ballot initiative. People in Ohio will be asked to vote and decide whether or not they would like to see abortion in the Ohio Constitution, protected abortion up to 9 months. And this is a massive decision that will, will change, change everything in Ohio.
And as journalists, we think they should know the facts. And there's a lot of disinformation.
There's an enormous. So the pro-abortion side is incredibly well financed. But it's very well financed, but it also has its enablers in the media who are allowing the pro-abortion side to say things that are just not true. Yes. Like, for example, women will die. Women will die. This is not true. This is absolutely not true. The other thing that they say that is untrue is, they say, it's very rare that there's late-term abortion. It's very, very rare. I know I've covered this in the podcast before, but it's worth saying again that based on the Guttmacher Institute's
pro-abortion
numbers, a very, very pro-abortion in think tank, women's think tank. According to them and according to their numbers, there are at least 10,000 late-term abortions in the United States every year. In a previous episode, that we interviewed a nurse who had worked at Warren Hearn's clinic in Boulder, Colorado, the late-term abortion doctor there, who said, this is the other thing, here's another lie that's told, that if there are any late-term abortions, and of course they say there basically aren't, that it's for these very extreme fetal anomaly. And according to Warren Hearn, who is really an expert on this, who's been doing this for, I think, is it 5 or 6 or 7 decades? 6 decades decades anyway. I think the man is in his 80s and he's been devoted to abortion and devoted to late-term abortion. He says in his clinic the late-term abortions are for the very same reasons that the early-term abortions are for, that they're not for anything different.
Social.
Also, by the way, we know from our friend, an OBGYN who has done nothing but OBGYN work for decades, Omar Harmada, who famously said, there is never a situation where an abortion is necessary to save the life of mother. What you do is you deliver the baby. You deliver the baby and hope to God you can try and save the baby's life, and you try to save the baby's life. You don't deliberately kill the baby in order to save the woman's life. So, you know, this misinformation, disinformation
Can I just also
is
say,
everywhere.
Look, we also know from our experience with Kermit Gosnell, none of the late-term abortions there were for medical
Correct.
reasons.
That's correct.
But also, Gosnell never let anyone know his statistics. He never filled in the forms. It was illegal. He was supposed to. He was supposed to notify every week how many abortions he was doing, what age. He never did it. So this is similar all around the country. I think in New York you don't even have to fill in any data at all. So this 10,000 figure, it's ludicrously.
It's on the low side.
So there are dozens of tens of thousands probably a year, and they're not for medical reasons. So all these, there's a lot of disinformation out there. But there have been. Go ahead, Aaron.
So I mean, you know, I think the point that's really important that I want to make is that, unfortunately, the liars are winning, and I want to. This is why we decided to do this exhibition, and I want to tell you what our plans are for the future. So since Roe v. Wade was overturned, there have been these abortion ballot initiatives all over the country. There have been 6 so far. 3 of them were pro-abortion. They were, you know, led by the pro-abortion people, and those 3 were won. And those 3 pro-abortion ones, one was in California, one in Michigan, and one in Vermont. All of them were won by the pro-abortion side. The anti-abortion side also had 3 ballot initiatives, one in Kansas, one in Kentucky, and one in Montana. All 3 of them were lost. So 6 ballot initiatives so far. All 6 have been lost by the pro-abortion, by the pro-life side. All 6 lost by the pro-life side. So this 7th one is now happening in Ohio. And just to let you know, in the future, what's about to happen in 2024, there will be ballot initiatives in Arizona, Colorado, Florida, Iowa, Missouri, Nebraska, Nevada, Pennsylvania, South Dakota. That's so far. There may be even more. And I think the problem is the pro-life, the anti-abortion side is losing. And they're losing because liars are winning. And so we have to be, as journalists, telling the truth is what matters.
Yes.
People need to be making decisions based on the truth of what they know. And we need to be telling the truth. And what's truthful, and I think it's important to say this because some people might criticize us for this photographic exhibition and say, oh, he was a murderer. Oh, God, that place is disgusting. And it's true, by the way, that the pictures of, as you walk into the exhibition, show a disgusting, dirty abortion clinic. And that, you know, obviously that's what he ran and he got away with in Pennsylvania. How did he get away with it? You know, that's a good question for the pro-abortion people. How did he get away with it, even though the complaints were coming in? But I think what's really important to really focus on for a minute is the part of the exhibition at the back. As we said, we don't do it explicitly. It's covered with, we have curtains. But what is there is 100% true, unimpeachable pictures of what abortion looks like when you do it in late term. And why are they insisting on this?
Sometimes not that late,
and sometimes not that late. Some of them are quite young.
Yeah, but and they're a testimony. There's pictures there, and you know, anyway, they're amazing pictures. And as I say, you know, these people lived a short time, but they have had an enormous effect across America, and hopefully that effect will continue because it's important that the truth be told.
And I couldn't agree more with Phelim, and I think what we feel very strongly about these babies in these photographs is this is their time to talk. So let them talk for themselves, and let them speak for themselves, but they're also being treated, we're treating them with a lot of reverence. I want to mention something in connection with this story, just a little detail, very interesting, and I don't know how to say this guy's name properly. Phelim, you correct me, because you're so good on corrections, on pronunciation. The Illinois governor, Mr. J.B. Pritzker, very important to know what he's doing, and so he is Is he? I think he is an heir to the Hyatt fortune, I think.
I don't know.
But anyway, a gazillionaire of some sort. He has now started a not-for-profit called Think Big America. And Think Big America is basically been formed to collect gazillions of dollars to push into these ballot initiatives. So you have this J.B. Pritzker who is going to spend a ton of money and raise a ton of money to take on these ballot measures on the abortion side, to push for abortion in Arizona, Ohio, Nevada, Florida, etc., etc., etc. So this is the context into which we're doing this.
And also
exhibition.
the point there is also he opposes.
Yes.
He has passed a law banning out-of-state money influencing Illinois elections, but he's using that money. And I mean, this is they see this as a winning issue. This is his probably attempt to become president, actually, because he's going to fund organizations outside his state to try and gain influence there. So let's go on to something a little lighter now. We were not supposed to be here in LA. We were supposed to be in Washington, D.C., covering the Mark Steyn trial. Yes. So the Mark Steyn trial. We're going to make a daily podcast about the Mark Steyn, Michael Mann defamation trial. So Mark Steyn's been sued for libel, for defamation, by climate scientist Michael Mann for essentially calling into question the integrity of Michael Mann as a climate scientist / alarmist. Michael Mann, of course, is best known for the hockey stick graph, which alleged to show temperatures completely stable, like the bottom part of a hockey stick, completely stable for 1,500 years, 2,000 years, I believe. And then, just as man industrialized, the temperatures shot up like a spike, ignoring the medieval warming period, ignoring the Little Ice Age, ignoring all the variabilities. So the lawsuit has been going on for, I think, 12 years now. And just on the eve of the trial, it was postponed due to the judge's, quote, unexpected illnesses, quote, close quote, illness.
So everyone was already there in DC ready for the trial. I mean, we were on the plane on Sunday night, about to land in DC when I checked my messages and got a message saying that the trial had been unexpectedly postponed. And this is what Mark Steyn had to say about the setback. And I'm going to read this. This is from
Mark Steyn, by the way, the broadcaster, writer,
entertainer.
He was on the Tucker Carlson show on Fox News. He was a stand-in for Rush Limbaugh.
As I say, he needs no introduction film. Okay. Almost,
Yes, go ahead.
Actually, he's literally that kind of guy. So this is what Mark had to say about this setback. So the trial I'd prepared for, and indeed for which I'd returned to the US from France in some serious discomfort, is now off. But don't worry, after another fortnight, we'll hold a Zoom call to discuss when it might be feasible for the trial to commence. Early 2024, late 2025, 2027? How about never, my lord? His Honour, Alfred Irvine, will forgive me if I am unsympathetic to this unexpected illness. This is the judge he's talking about. 10 months ago, Mr. Irvine, the fourth trial judge, a phrase that does not exist in any functioning jurisdiction, reacted to my own unexpected illness, 2 heart attacks, by querying whether I'd actually had them.
It's pretty amazing when you read what the judge said. Mr. Steyn represents. And Mr. Steyn represents this, but he still has to come all the way from France, where he had these alleged heart attacks, to come to this crappy little, what do you call those pre-hearing hearings? Just decide who goes first, kind of thing. Mark, I suppose, is entitled to have some skepticism about the judge's illness, or to express skepticism, just like the judge did. So, some background about the case. The case all started over a decade ago when Rand Simberg of the CEI wrote in their blog, "The Other Scoundrel in an Unhappy Valley." Now, for those who, like us, who are not au fait with college football, what do we think, Anne?
I know nothing about college football. I think that's better for me to say that right out.
What do we think of college football as a principle? Can I just say college scholarships, sports scholarships? What is wrong? I mean, there are many things wrong with American academia, and sports scholarships are one of them. Now, they kind of exist in Ireland, but there are unofficial sports scholarships. You kind of get in on a wink and a nod. But here, it's very open. You get in on a sports scholarship. It goes against the American way. It allows the rot of academia. It allows for affirmative action because these people are not getting in on academic qualifications.
This is a tangent film that has gone on too long. Move back to Mark Steyn, please.
Okay. So on Happy Valley. So apparently Penn State have a legendary football team, American football that is, not the real football. And Joe Paterno was the coach. Jerry Sandusky was a deputy coach or whatever. I'm sure. Please correct me in the comments below.
Oh, I think you're going to get a lot of corrections, Phelan, by the way. Also about your comments about college football. I have just a slight inkling that there'll be people who'll be offended by your characterization. Move on.
So the other scoundrel in Happy Valley. So yes, Jerry Sandusky was convicted of child rape, let's call it that, child abuse. And it turned out that Penn State officials have been told, an eyewitness of account of him sexually abusing a child. He was seen in the showers doing this. They had an, quote, investigation. An internal investigation, and they exonerated him of any wrongdoing. Now, the people who cleared him, Sandusky then, a couple of years later, was convicted criminally. The people who cleared him were charged. They were then charged criminally for covering up child abuse.
By the way,
and they pled guilty.
Yeah, and by the way, I'm really glad to hear that, by the way.
Yeah.
That's really good.
So, when Mark, just as they were charged, Louis Freeh, who was the former director of the FBI, did an investigation on behalf of Penn State into the situation, and he pointed out that they had covered this up. And Mark, I think, and Ransenberg wrote their columns in response to the Louis Freeh investigation, just as they were being charged criminally. And because this is important. Timing is important here.
Very important.
Yes.
You'll know why in a moment.
Yes.
It reflects well on me, which I think is very important.
Yes. So keep.
Always remember what really matters.
Yes.
If things reflect well on my intelligence, we would like to always highlight them on this show.
You're like those journalists in the war zone. As the children are dying around them. I was almost wounded tonight as I broadcast.
I actually saw a very funny, funny not funny. Clip on that the other day where there was, they had the kind of glamorous journalist wearing the flak jacket and and the whole thing and the helmet, and then the guy, the cameraman wearing like a t-shirt, and shorts kind of thing,
Yes.
Okay, moving on.
Remind me to tell you about Anne and the teddy bear.
Yes, fine. But anyway, you're actually referencing something in my journalistic past, by the way, which by the way, Phelan then, this is too complicated a story to tell. It's based on a TV show called Drop the Dead Donkey, which British people saw and was about a fictional, ludicrous newsroom. But anyway, let's keep that story. Let's keep that story because I think tangents seem to be a problem this morning. Now, Phelan, can you move on?
Anne's teddy bear was innocent.
My teddy bear was innocent. That's genuine. The main thing to say. Move on.
So Mark Steyn and Ransenberg actually wrote the original column, something about Unhappy Valley, which apparently Happy Valley is where
the other scoundrel in Unhappy Valley.
And they both made the point. Sorry, Michael Mann was involved in the Climate Gate emails, where he appeared to rewrite the rules of peer review. His fellow scientists said his research was fraudulent, sloppy, crappy. All these words they used, and they said the hockey stick is lunacy and inaccurate in all these Climate Gate emails. And even Mann, was shown to be unprofessional, vindictive, not open to legitimate criticism. All that, and these emails. So that's when. So Penn State investigated him, found him to be completely innocent of any wrongdoing. Then the same people investigated Sandusky, found him to be completely innocent of any wrongdoing, and then they were charged for the second cover-up. And Mark Steyn and Ransenberg legitimately said, look, if you would cover up for Jerry Sandusky, how on earth could we believe you when you say Michael Mann is innocent and exonerated? It's a much less serious charge, academic malfeasance. So of course you'll cover up if you're going to cover up for child abuse, you're going to cover up for academic malfeasance to protect the reputation of your institution. So that was what they said. And Michael Mann then claimed that was defamatory and is suing.
And Mark Steyn is defending.
Yes. And so in advance of the trial, Mark has been posting and this is why we were so looking forward to covering the trial, because it's going to be great entertainment. It's also be all about American free speech, by the way.
So Mark, yeah, in advance of the trial, Mark has been posting on Steyn Online, by the way, which we would highly recommend you go and get and watch all of this. But Mark has been posting videos of his deposition. He was deposed in advance of the case by Michael Mann's people. It's absolutely priceless. I mean, plenty of people have seen depositions and they're boring, and it's all very, I don't know, it's very, formulaic and just extremely tedious. There's nothing even remotely tedious about these depositions, and in fact, it is high drama, very, very entertaining, and just by the way, one thing I actually think that should happen is those depositions, people should watch those depositions. We're going to show you some clips from the depositions now. But some of these pieces of these depositions, or all of these depositions, by the way, should be shown to every school child and every university student who has been abused by having to watch and listen and learn from this hockey stick, which is the centre of this case, and hear what Mark Steyn and others are saying about the hockey stick. So we're going to start by we're going to listen to a few pieces, but let's look at this first piece here from the deposition, which kind of tells you the whole story in a way about what happened here.
Well, it actually looks at the Mark has said that Michael Mann's fellow scientists have called him out as fraudulent, useless, awful, terrible. And these aren't minor scientists. These are like some of the most famous scientists in the world. In fact, they're probably on Mann's side. So let's play the excerpts from the exhibition, from the deposition. This is Mark Steyn being questioned by Michael Mann's lawyer. We don't have it here, but there's one excerpt where Michael Mann's lawyer actually laughs at Mark Steyn, and this is something Michael Mann needs to realise. When you can make the lawyer question and you laugh, it's not great for your case. Like, you need. I think Mann may not be scared of this case, but he should be. So let's have
a listen to this first little short piece.
The fraudulent of the hockey stick.
And the position that it's fraudulent, sir, you have written many times, you stand by that position, correct?
Yes, I think its fraudulence became more evident, so that when Harold Lewis, the very distinguished American physicist, called it the greatest pseudo-scientific fraud of my lifetime, and I believe he was well into his 80s by then. He was certainly getting up there. When Ivor Jiver, the Nobel laureate, genuine Nobel laureate, not a poser fraud laureate like your client, when Ivor Jiver said it was the emperor's new clothes of science, when Rob Wilson, a Scottish climate scientist, described it at a public meeting as a quote, crock of when Jonathan Jones at Oxford University called it obvious drivel, these guys were reacting as much, not just to the fact that, as Professor Jones says, the hockey stick is obvious drivel, but also to the fact that when its flaws were pointed out, Mann obfuscated, doubled down on them, and at that point made it clear that these were not innocent mistakes.
So, I mean, this is very, very funny, and it doesn't end with being funny there. I mean, the next piece that we want to play from you, by the way, is, and it is very, very interesting. So the hockey stick is this very long, covering this very long period of history
of temperatures.
However, one of the things that Mark Steyn points out, and that others, obviously, that all these scientists point out, is the fact that the data sets are changed midstream on the hockey stick. This is not what you're meant to be doing when you're creating a graph of this kind. And at one point in the graph, there's this 1 year. There's 1 year of data that's pushed in.
Yeah,
and that 1 year of data is based on one tree in New England. This one tree. A tree, by the way, that Mark Steyn has actually visited.
Yes.
A tree that Mark Steyn knows.
So let's get this clear. So it's 1,500 years of temperature. Worldwide temperatures remained exactly the same. So
According to this,
according to Michael Mann, until they were spiked by our industrial use. But how did he represent 1 year? How did he find out what the temperature was worldwide
on this one particular year that he had, and I think the phrase cherry picking is what they use for this particular. Do you like that?
Yes.
So I think this cherry picked 1 year of this one tree. Let's hear about that.
Let's
right
hear
now.
about the smartest tree in Christendom.
Then, of course, you have things that I regard as patently absurd, and man, presumably as a trained scientist, cannot not have known this, which is that, for example, the famous tree in the Gaspé Peninsula, an area I know very well in Quebec. I've been going there all my life, and I love it. And I was astonished to find that basically for 1 year in the hockey stick, man relies on one tree in the Gaspé Peninsula. Now, this tree cannot even tell the weather in the Gaspé Peninsula. So the tree is useless for telling you what the temperature is in the Gaspé. But we are expected to believe, and we are expected to believe that man believed that the tree in the Gaspé, which can't tell you the temperature in the Gaspé, can somehow tell you the temperature for Paris and Rome and Berlin and St. Petersburg. And that, I do not honestly think you can regard that as a good faith error.
This is great. Now, at the very center of this whole thing between Michael Mann and Mark Steyn, is the word fraud, right? So, Michael Mann is being accused by Mark Steyn of being a fraud. And by the way, as you've already heard, plenty of scientists think the same thing. But what I think is even more interesting is, he's actually, funny enough, and this can't be even argued. He is the actual definition of fraud, and we know that. And how we know that is because of the Nobel Committee. We actually know that from the Nobel Committee. That's how we know he's a fraud. Because here's what Michael Mann did. Michael Mann misrepresented himself as a Nobel laureate and continued to do that until he had to be told for the first time in history by the Nobel Committee, you are not a Nobel laureate. So if that isn't the definition, by the way, of fraud, because this is exactly what fraud is, misrepresenting who you are. So this is who Michael Mann is.
It even gets worse than that. So Michael Mann made himself a certificate.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Okay, that's great.
And downloaded it and put it on a frame on his wall.
Fabulous.
Then he was told, but people pointed it out to him, he was represented it on lots of TV shows as Nobel laureate, and in fact called himself a Nobel laureate and all that. Then, when this case came up, in the very first legal filings to the court, right, his own lawyers and Michael Mann, in an affidavit, described himself as a Nobel Prize winning scientist. So Michael Mann has defrauded the very court that he's going in front of, saying, I am an innocent man. So
it's delightful. It's delightful. Let's listen to this particular part of the deposition. I think you're going to enjoy this. Let's listen to it now.
And let's go on to Exhibit 43. Confirm, sir, that you have also called Dr. Mann a serial liar.
Well, I think when you lie continuously about something as extraordinary as being a Nobel laureate, which has been going on for a little over a century. So there are actually at any one time only a few dozen genuine Nobel laureates on the planet, and yet you misrepresent yourself as a Nobel laureate. That is basically a core definition of academic misconduct, and I equate it to the equivalent of stolen valor by people who never anywhere near a battlefield, but pretending to have been in the thick of it on D-Day or in Vietnam or wherever. So I think that's a fairly substantive thing. He knows he's not a Nobel laureate, because to be a Nobel laureate, you get given a medal by the King of Sweden or the King of Norway. So if you've never been in the presence of their respective majesties, you know pretty well you're not a Nobel laureate. So this is, to me, when you do it on the scale that Mann did and continues to do, notwithstanding your amended statement of claim, Councillor, I think that is pretty much qualifies for serial lying.
You have called him a serial liar, correct?
Correct.
Mr. Steyn, you also refer to Michael Mann as a thorough top-to-toe fraud, correct?
Well, as you know, I did not call Mann a fraud in football and hockey. I said the hockey stick was fraudulent. In the days, months, and years afterwards, one is shocked to discover that the Nobel laureate thing, which, as I said, is as about a grotesque and brazen fraud as one can imagine, purporting to be among the few dozen living persons who have won Nobel Prizes for their science. That is a serious fraud.
This is why, as you know, we're sitting here today in Los Angeles. It is nice to be home. It's nice to be in Los Angeles. The weather is magnificent. However, honestly, we would much prefer to be sitting in a courtroom in Washington, D.C., and mostly because, and obviously Phelim and I have covered a lot of court cases in our day, and you know we love the work, by the way, and we appreciate you supporting us to allowing us to do that. But this particular case was going to be a pleasure, and a pleasure because of who Mark Steyn is. And by the way, what a hero he is, by the way, and what an amazing guy through all of this to remain so good-humoured. And I think that's actually maybe, you know, the miracle of all of this, is that he has remained good-humoured throughout. And just to give you a sense of some of the humour, I mean, you've heard some of it already through some of that. This next section, which is, we're being gratuitous here, but sure, why not? We want you to listen to this little piece of just pure, fabulous Mark Steyn. Let's listen to this. And it's about, we're calling this section name calling, because there's a lot of names that were called. Michael Mann was called a lot of names, not just by Mark Steyn, but by lots of other people. Let's have a listen to some of the names he was called.
Well, in your article, Supervillain, you do refer to Michael Mann as a litigious dweeb. Correct?
And which article is this?
Dr. Mann, Supervillain, Exhibit 45.
Okay, 45. Oh, yeah, there we are. Yeah, I actually say an insecure litigious dweeb. And I think the insecurity, you know, his principal skills, in whatever you call it down here, the rule of completion, I think we should note for the record that I say he's an insecure litigious dweeb whose principal skills are blocking, banning, and hysterically shrieking that Amazon.com cracked down on any reviewers insufficiently fawning in their reviews of his book. That's what I said.
Yeah, thank you. And you refer to him as a self-conferred Nobel laureate.
That's correct.
And a distinguished fellow of the Scanty, Sloppy, and Society, right?
Can I just say at the end of that, you know, when the lawyer says, and a distinguished fellow of the Scanty, Sloppy, and Society, right? So that sounds terrible. And you would think, well, you shouldn't be calling them that. But as Mark then points out, each one of those words, Scanty, Sloppy, and are hyperlinked. And they link to articles by other scientists.
Yes.
It's the other scientists calling Michael Mann that, and that this was unfair and inaccurate and probably unethical of the lawyer to try and put words in Mark Steyn's mouth. But this is the level of Michael Mann's defense or offense, and you get on then to, you know, they're even trying to, you know, do this old high school dropout.
Oh, this is
cliche.
This is an extraordinary thing. So Mark Steyn is one of those guys who you know, and that's why his brain is so interesting and so entertaining and so fresh. Is that he's a self-taught man. He's a self-educated man. He didn't go through the horrific academia that a lot of people.
He didn't go to university.
He didn't go to university. Oh, the horror film.
But he went to a good secondary school in the UK back when an education was an education. But you see him often referred to as a high school dropout, right, or uneducated.
And you know the cliched picture of the high school dropout, you know, with some kind of guy, degenerate guy, sort of
working
smoking dope, working in the 7-Eleven. 27. This is
not even able to hold a job.
This is not who Mark Steyn was. And in fact, actually, at one point, maybe we should do that now, Phelim, actually. Actually, you know what? We'll do this. I had picked a small quote for this next section. And actually, what I'll do is we'll let it run on. Because what I think is important is it's going to deal with this, this accusation of him being a high school dropout. We're going to start with that and let Mark explain, exactly how about his education. But let's roll it on, Phelim, on to hear exactly what Mark Steyn did after high school. And it is pretty impressive, the pedigree of this guy and the amount of experience he's had, and how, funny enough, actually, BBC, by the way, back in the day when the BBC did know what quality was, did recognise quality in him. Let's have a listen to this extraordinary sort of biopic, I suppose, biography of Mark Steyn in his own words.
Did you graduate from the King Edward School?
Nobody graduates from high school in the United Kingdom, sir.
Did you complete your educational requirements at King Edward High School?
I completed my time at King Edward School.
Well, do you get a diploma from King Edward School?
No, you don't get a diploma anywhere in the United Kingdom. That's that touches on what I was mentioning earlier about the over-credentialization of American life. My daughter got a diploma for graduating from an American nursery school. That's how over-credentialed the United States is.
So this, honestly, we're very disappointed we're not in Washington, D.C. Hopefully the case will be rescheduled for the new year and we will be there. But for you who are now maybe haven't known enough about Mark Steyn, we would really urge people right now to go to Steyn Online. Go to Steyn Online. And by the way, you should sign up for the Steyn Online, because obviously this has cost Mark Steyn and his people a fortune, because all these lawyers have to be paid, and people know how much that is. So. And he has, if you go to his site, there's all kinds of things you can do to support him. You can buy his books. You can buy his hockey stick. Oh, Phelim, did you forget to bring the hockey stick?
I forgot to bring that.
Okay, we'll take a photograph of the hockey stick and show you the hockey stick now, because you can buy one yourself. You can buy one of these hockey sticks yourselves and put it up on your wall.
Liberty sticks.
It's called Liberty Stick. Sorry, I should clarify that. Yeah, that it's called a Liberty Stick. But please do support Mark Steyn. Listen to the depositions. This is an extraordinary person, and I think what's happening in Washington, D.C. is they're scared. They're scared of the truth, and they're scared of allowing Mark Steyn to question these people, because the plan is that Mark Steyn will represent himself, and he will question Michael Mann and question others, which would be delightful beyond belief and extraordinary, and something that we should all wish for. Because, Mark makes this point somewhere else in the depositions. This hockey stick graph has been taught and used to terrorize young people, and make them really depressed about the future, and make them think that, look at the graph, look at that graph. The graph basically is saying we're basically hell-bent, we're going towards oblivion, annihilation. Annihilation is the only thing in the future. And this is complete nonsense. This graph is a complete nonsense. But it's being taught, and people are suffering as a result of it. You have these young people now who are suffering from anxiety, people who are choosing not to have children because it would be damaging to the climate. I have to tell that quick, funny story. Can I quickly tell that funny story, Phelim? That Phelim and I were at a party in Santa Monica. One of my first early memories of coming to California. I might have told this story before the podcast, but I have to say this. I was sitting on a sofa at the party with a woman who was heavily pregnant, and she had two small children at the party as well, and they were playing on the floor, and there were lots of people, everyone kind of, well, let's say politically, would be rather on a different trajectory life-wise than myself. But the woman said to me, "Do you have children?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Thank you." And I'm kind of like, what? And she quickly followed up by saying, "You're so much better for the planet than me. You're doing so much more for the planet than me." So that's the kind of people that live around us.
We can't leave this week without talking about Israel and what's going on there. We live in West LA, in the western part of LA, where Santa Monica, Venice, where there's a lot of Jewish people here. It's traditionally a Jewish stronghold, actually. It's the entertainment, a lot of entertainment people live here. And I want to show you, so Abbot Kinney, known, I think it was GQ magazine called it one of the coolest streets on the planet. So we walked down Abbot Kinney the other day and we saw this. Let's have a look at these pictures, Anne. So look at those pictures. There are pictures of palm trees on Abbot Kinney. Not an unusual thing, you might think, but look at the red dots on them. What are those red dots? And it's only when you know what you know, you realise that there was hostage. Those posters. Let's put up one of those posters there. There was these posters on these trees in LA, in Venice.
One had survived, right, Philip? So,
it was but only because it was kind of off the street a little bit. But they had been put up there and had been ripped down in LA. So
I actually think to disagree with you. I think the one that had survived, by the way, and I wish I'd asked the man. I could see a man to the side, kind of guarding it, a gentleman, just standing, watching that one that had survived, that one of those flyers that had survived. And I think he was there ready. And it's funny, I saw somebody on Twitter, and I thought it was very good, talking about that they were loving these videos of people ripping them down, not because of the content of the video, but for the heroism and the brilliant work of the people who are filming them and naming and shaming them and saying to people, do you know who this person is? And a very good example of that is this story that we just saw from the New York Post. This Broadway producer, James L. Simon, who's not a nobody at all. He's a major Broadway producer who's, famously Death of a Salesman, Arthur Miller's Death of a Salesman. He did the Broadway revival in 2022. He also, hugely famous guy. And here's what he was doing. He was ripping these flyers down, but somebody caught him. And so when that got a little bit more attention, Mr. Simon had to find himself a story, because suddenly, and I made this point with Phelim, if you're so brazen to do something like this, be brazen and be brazen enough to explain yourself and stand by your action. You're a grown man, for God's sake. If this is what you want to do, this is something that you believe strenuously in, you're destroying these flyers, depicting these poor unfortunates who are still kidnapped and being held by Hamas. I mean, a horrific prospect for children separated from their parents, awful kind of scenarios. And so if you're the guy who's ripping that down, speak up. Let's hear from you, Be brave. Instead of that, right. What did he say, Philip? What is it? Oh, no, tell us what he's been doing.
He was concerned about the littering in the neighbourhood.
And it's illegal. Yeah, the illegal flyer.
Yes.
Oh, illegal
Come on, it's a huge issue. And I think also, just maybe you haven't seen, the Metropolitan Police in London are also tearing down the posters again to protect community. So somebody is going to get upset and do something violent about these posters in some left-wing / Muslim area of London, and that's not their problem. The problem is posters telling the truth. The posters telling the truth about women and children being held hostage. Can you imagine the hell they're going through, the hell their families are going through? And the problem is people who find that so repulsive and that it makes them violent. That is the problem for the people committing the violence, not the problem for the people putting up the posters, or the problem for the people being held hostage. So we would like to do more about this project. Mm-hmm. Tell us in the comments if you think you'd like to know, like us to do something about this, a bigger project, because there's just so much lies and disinformation out there.
Well, I think something interesting has happened. I think there is a very odd moment happening here. I mean, certainly we've been writing to friends and all these people that we know, the Jewish people that we know, to just sympathise with them and say, I mean, we're just completely appalled. It's really overwhelming, the stories that are coming out. But it's interesting, the responses we've received from Jewish friends and people, and just Jewish people that we know in our neighbourhood and stuff, saying things like they have been shocked by the silence of their closest friends. So people are getting an awful education about the anti-Semitism, by the way, all around, that they weren't aware of. Yeah. And I think that maybe none of us were quite as aware of as we are now. But I was quite shocked. We have received that message now from a number of people, saying that they were very glad we'd written, and a lot of these Jewish people we know have spent a lot of time in Israel, have obviously friends there, relatives and whatever. So we had written to people, and this what they said.
in Hollywood, we notice that, that there's a bit of a civil war going on in Hollywood. You've got these some Hollywood stars saying, rightly calling out Hamas, and then you've got other people, oh, we need a ceasefire. We need a ceasefire is the biggest disguise for anti-Semitism on the planet. It sounds good, doesn't it? We need a ceasefire. But, release the hostages. How about that? How about release, the illegally held, you talk about illegal acts of war, holding women and children hostage. I think that's what we call illegal. And funny, we were talking to Mark Steyn about it at the weekend, actually, and he made the point, I hope he's wrong, he thought that the people who, the people in New York who are sacking those who are come to work for them, who expressed pro-Hamas sympathies or pro taking hostage sympathies. He says it's a generational issue in the left, that for a certain for the baby boomer leftists, support of Israel was seen as the right thing to do back in the 60s and 70s. Mm-hmm. I remember when Israel was cool. Many relatives of mine went to visit kibbutzes, and Israel was kind of a left-wing hippie paradise. Then it swung to the right, and suddenly the left didn't like them anymore. So he thinks that once this older generation of leftists moves on, shall we say, then the left will be completely anti-Israel and will open itself to anti-Semitism again. I hope he's wrong. Mark Steyn is often right, is mostly right. Mm-hmm. So let's see how that goes. Have we anything else on the show? Maybe.
Well, I think the last thing I wanted to say something. I mean, because obviously this Israel situation is so awful. But we had a little funny story, and this is a survey. We'll end the show with this survey. So we've recently come back to our home in Southern California and went out for a coffee the other morning. Phelim ordered the coffee, 2 Americanos, and whatever, $4 each apparently.
Yes.
Choke, by the way, on that already. And then when he went to pay, it was, how much was it? $10?
$9.
$9. It suddenly went up to $9, and Phelim said, "What's the extra $1 for?"
Yes.
And they said, "It's for the milk." And he went, you charge extra for the milk that's put into the coffees?" Well, and they went, "Well, it's normal. It's quite normal." So if any of you have ever come across a place where they charge for the milk, do let us know, because this is a moment of concern, because my husband really does like to drink coffee out, but we've had this very serious conversation in our family where we've decided we may have to give up drinking coffee outside.
It's just so expensive,
because we just can't afford it anymore.
Yeah, I have a question. So I have a further point, right? So the way nowadays in these coffee shops, you get your milk in a little container that was crafted on a Peruvian hillside by virgins, or was bought in an antique store, and
delightful.
It's an old ink blotter thing, whatever. You get your milk.
The main thing is it's been recycled.
Yeah, but it comes in a cute little container.
Recycled container.
This milk was poured directly into the coffee, so it was a splash.
Horror!
It was a splash of milk.
It was actually a splash.
Maybe a dash or a splash of milk in each of the coffees.
So if you've come across such a crime, do let us know.
Yes.
Because we're now in a crisis where we may have to give up going out for coffee, and it is one of the things that we do enjoy doing here, because there's obviously a lot of opportunities for people watching, and overhearing other people's conversations, which are quite often quite entertaining around here.
Yes.
That's enough from us this week. As I said, please do go to Steyn Online, Steyn Online, to watch the full depositions from Mark Steyn's case, the court case that hasn't happened, and we will keep you posted on that.
And go to evidencetheexhibition.com to get more information about the Gosnell photo exhibition.
And let us know if you think we should take this Evidence the Exhibition on the road, because we think that the argument needs to be made, and needs to be made over and over again in every possible way. Because the truth is very, very important, and the truth is not getting out in these ballot initiatives.
And go to outragedcoffeedrinkers.com if I made that one up.
No.
No.
Okay, we'll talk to you next week.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.